142 years ago this week, William Tweed, one of the most powerful politicians in the history of New York City, escaped police custody and fled to Spain. Why was he in police custody? Well, there's a story there, let me tell you. Here are 5 scandalous things about Boss Tweed. Number 1, his political career was born of violence. 27 years before finding himself an international fugitive, William Tweed took his first steps down the road toward power, fortune, and ultimately infamy by joining a volunteer fire company. It was 1848. Tweed was 25 at the time. Born and raised in Manhattan's Lower East Side, he'd already joined neighborhood organizations like the Masons and the Oddfellows. At the suggestion of a state assemblyman, Tweed and about 24 other men from the neighborhood organized the Americus Fire Company No. 6, soon nicknamed Big Six because of the unusually large engine they drove. At the time, volunteer fire companies operated independently, and if more than one company responded to the same fire, a brawl was often the result. Firemen let buildings burn while they fought each other for the right to put out the fire. Tweed handled himself well in these clashes between fire companies, becoming known for his prowess with an axe. He was made foreman of the Big Six. He also attracted the attention of the local leaders of the Democratic Party. He was elected alderman in 1851 and then elected to the U.S. House of Representatives the following year. Quite a meteoric rise for a man who a few years earlier had been cracking skulls as a volunteer fire laddie. But Tweed's future lay not in the halls of Congress, but much closer to home. Number 2, he was a mediocre elected official, but a master of behind-the-scenes dealings. Tweed served only a single 2-year term in the House of Representatives before returning home to the Lower East Side. He was bored by the job of being a legislator. He viewed politics not as a venue for public service, but rather as a vehicle to make money and raise his social station. How unheard of! In 1855, former Congressman Tweed was appointed to the Board of Education, where he discovered that members were earning significant off-the-books income by overcharging for textbooks and forcing teachers to pay kickbacks in exchange for getting hired. Tweed had found his vehicle. The Democratic Party in New York City was dominated by an organization called Tammany Hall. Tammany Hall had controlled the party for decades. It was credited with helping to elect Aaron Burr, Vice President of the United States, in 1800. In 1863, Tweed was elected Tammany's Grand Sachem, a term stolen from the indigenous Lenape people, which meant chief. However, most people addressed him as simply boss. Number 3, he concealed his racket behind a phony law firm. Tweed found he could wield much more influence and make a lot more money than he ever could have as an elected official by getting his equally unscrupulous associates elected instead. Tweed allies served in powerful offices such as New York City Comptroller, New York County District Attorney, and Recorder of New York City, a now defunct office with far-reaching influence in city government, including seats on the Board of Supervisors of New York County and the Metropolitan Police Board. These highly placed allies became known as the Tweed Ring. He also had friends in the courts. One such friend, Judge George Bernard, who had also served as recorder for a time, certified Tweed as an attorney, enabling him to open a law office despite not being a lawyer. Tweed extorted money from companies seeking city contracts and disguised the payments as legal fees. He also personally purchased a printing company and a stationery supplier, both of which were city contractors, and began grossly overcharging the city government for their services. Needless to say, Tweed got very rich very fast. And number 4, he openly flaunted his ill-gotten wealth. Though Boss Tweed continued to work out of Lower Manhattan, where he'd been born and bred, he started spending his off hours a little further uptown. In 1866, he bought a brownstone on West 36th Street. He also invested extensively in real estate. At one point, he was the third largest private landowner in New York City. He upgraded his wardrobe, appropriate considering his new address in the garment district, and began sporting a stick pin that held a 10.5-carat diamond. Eventually, he moved from the brownstone on West 36th Street to a mansion on Fifth Avenue. He became a regular patron at Delmonico's, where he ate large, lavish meals of steak, duck, and oysters. When his daughter got married, he threw her one of the most opulent weddings in the history of New York City, with catering by Delmonico's and enough wedding presents from Tweed and his friends to fill an entire room at his Fifth Avenue mansion. His daughter's wedding was May 31st, 1871. 6 weeks later, Tweed's empire began to crumble. Number 5, he became the American mascot for corruption. On July 12, 1871, a parade of Irish Protestants was attacked by a crowd of Irish Catholics. A riot ensued where over 60 people were killed and another 150 people were injured. Tammany Hall, which had allowed the parade to go ahead despite fears that it might turn violent, was blamed. Public opinion began to turn against Boss Tweed, which emboldened several city officials to cross him and provide the media with evidence of his many illegal activities. On November 19th, Tweed was arrested. In his first trial, the jury was unable to reach a verdict. In his second trial, Tweed was convicted on over 200 counts and sentenced to 12 years in prison. That sentence was later reduced to 1 year. After his release, upon serving that 1 year, Tweed was ordered to pay back over $6 million in embezzled funds. Unable to pay, he was arrested again and locked up in Manhattan's Ludlow Street jail. During a home visit, he fled to Spain, though his freedom was relatively short-lived. Less than a year later, he was captured and returned to New York. He spent most of the rest of his life in the Ludlow Street jail, dying there of pneumonia on April 12, 1878. He was 55 years old. One of the key figures in the downfall of Boss Tweed was Thomas Nast, a Bavarian immigrant who had grown up on the Lower East Side and had idolized the men of the Big Six Fire Company. As an adult, Nast worked as an illustrator for Harper's Weekly, eventually becoming the most influential political cartoonist in American history. Nast's cartoons satirizing the corruption of Tammany Hall not only turned public opinion against Boss Tweed, they also played a role in Tweed's ultimate capture. While evading authorities in the Spanish city of Vigo in 1876, Tweed was arrested after someone recognized him from one of Nast's cartoons. Though, probably not that one, because he had a normal head, not a money bag head. The hardest part is picking only 5. Catch you next time. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks for watching.